Welcome back to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast. At Healthy Steps Nutrition, we believe something as fundamental as nutrition shouldn't be complicated, which is why we focus on a simple, habit-based approach. We know that becoming the healthiest and best version of yourself isn't just about what you eat or spending a few hours in the gym. At Healthy Steps Nutrition, we look at a holistic approach, looking at support systems, stress management, mindset, lifestyle, sleep, exercise, and of course, nutrition. We work with clients to help them create individualized plans and focus on one thing at a time to becoming the healthiest version of themselves. I think the most impactful thing about our program is that you work directly with a coach and you have ongoing support and accountability. That is what drives consistency, which leads to success. My name is Nicole Aucoin. I'm a registered dietitian and founder of Healthy Steps Nutrition, CrossFit HSN, and HSN Mentoring. Also the author of The Basics of Nutrition Coaching CrossFit Preferred Nutrition course. In this podcast, we're going to teach you how to take one step at a time to becoming the healthiest version of yourself. I'm so excited to do more things with today's podcast guest, but today we have Dr. Dani Urcuyo, and he is a CrossFit athlete. He's been around the CrossFit space for forever. He is also a physician and the medical director at SteadyMD, a virtual medical practice. He is so knowledgeable, specifically around stress and sleep and working with athletes and general population to help them prioritize sleep and stress management to prevent disease and get healthy. In today's podcast, we talk about how stress and sleep impact overall health, disease prevention, and chronic disease. We also dive into how alcohol impacts quality of sleep and stress management. We talk about ways to improve quality of sleep, and then we dive into some stress topics, like what's the difference between short bouts of stress and prolonged stress? How does that lead to chronic disease, and how will this impact you reaching your goals, whether it be weight loss, performance goals, whatever the case may be. If you are a gym owner or a coach looking to learn more about helping your clients or yourself with stress and sleep, Dr. Dani has partnered with us in our mentoring program to provide a free training. You can attend live or catch the recording by clicking the link in the show notes. All right, let's get to this podcast with Dr. Dani. Dr. Dani Urcuyo, welcome to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about stress and sleep and recovery today. You are an expert in this area. I remember us speaking at a conference together. Man, it was like 4 or 5 years ago at this point, and I listened to it and I put it in the filing cabinet in my head. Like, I will use this guy at some point to spread his message to a bigger audience. And I'm so excited that we're coming together to talk all about stress and sleep. You know, I think most people do not prioritize this in managing stress and sleep, which causes so many ripple down effects. I was reading some statistics earlier, and I'm sure you have a bunch of statistics, but it's like 40% of Americans are dealing with major stress issues, and over 20% of our population in the US is not getting enough sleep. But I'm sure there's more people that are underreporting.
Absolutely. I think it's the hidden pandemic, if you will. Right now, we're all in the midst of COVID, but those two things are definitely interrelated: stress, sleep deprivation, COVID, all those things. But it's kind of one of these silent, frankly, killers even that I'm really happy we're talking about today because it's so important.
Why should our listeners care about this? So many people prioritize exercise, and we understand like, hey, we need to eat healthy to be healthy, but managing stress and sleep kind of gets put on the back burner because we overschedule ourselves and we try to do all the things. We have a fear of missing out with all the cool things, which leaves us with less hours in the day to prioritize sleep. Like, why should people care about this?
Great question. So I think the best place to start is kind of think about the ingredients for health, right? You have exercise, sleep, stress, nutrition, and then one other thing that actually gets overlooked quite a bit is relationships. So having healthy relationships, being a part of a community, as we all know, health happens in a community. So those 5 ingredients are super important, and people place those on different hierarchies. Some people put nutrition at the base, some people put exercise at the base, but I like to think about actually 2 things being at the base: nutrition and sleep. Maybe even nutrition even a bigger piece, sleep even being a bigger piece than nutrition, because all the hard work that we do during the day, when it comes to eating healthy, learning things, all those things get used while you sleep. So for example, when you're making sure that your diet is dialed in, when you're sleeping, you're doing all this recovery, all this rebuilding. You're using those building blocks that you gathered during the day. You're repairing all the damage that you did at the gym. So the exercise comes in. But then from a learning perspective, this is where you do all of your kind of integration, review, making a new construct of how the world works. And without adequate sleep, you can't learn effectively. You can't control your emotions effectively. It really affects every single aspect of your life. So it's this thing that we've often overlooked, but it's really foundational.
I think like an easy example to this is if you think about the nights that you don't get a lot of sleep, or a few nights in a row when you don't get a lot of sleep, like how irritated are you at things that wouldn't normally irritate you? Or do you crave more foods that you would not normally crave? You know, we talk about it a lot of times, like your cortisol levels, your stress levels are increased when you don't get enough sleep. Leptin and ghrelin levels, the hormones that make you satisfied and full, are not regulated. So there's all these different aspects that all work together to either help you reach your overall health and wellness goals or inhibit you. And I don't think enough people prioritize it. How much sleep should someone get a night?
Yeah, that's a great question. One I think that everyone asks, and it is somewhat individualized, but I think looking at it from different age groups makes a lot of sense, kind of starting there. I'm sure we have listeners from, every age group. Certainly children, babies need a lot more sleep. When we're talking about, people in their 20s, all the way up to, let's call it like 50s, 60s, usually people need about 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Now, when we talk about older individuals, so, 60s, 70s, 80s, those kind of things, people tend to think, okay, they're not getting as much sleep and therefore they need less sleep. And that's actually not true. They need just as much sleep as their middle-aged counterparts. They're just not able to generate that sleep as effectively for a couple different reasons. If we wanted to get into that, we could. But it brings up a really important point where, we see a lot of people's health deteriorate later in life. And it begs the question, is this partly due to sleep deprivation, memory deficits? We know that if you don't get enough sleep, you can't remember stuff, right? So how many of our older folks are having problems remembering things? How much of that is maybe not dementia or, cognitive decline? How much of it has to do with sleep? So that's just an important point that I wanted to bring up. I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's really important to mention. Go ahead.
I feel like sometimes I'm thinking about, okay, let's say you have a few nights of bad sleep. Like you get a couple nights around, you take the red eye home or whatever the case may be, which we've done many times going from, you and I used to hang out often when CrossFit Health was having the DDC events. We would go and listen to all these presenters and then talk about how nutrition and health are a bigger part than just eating keto. But what if, let's say those nights, or for anyone that had a rough night's sleep, is it true? Like, okay, I'm going to take a nap the next day and then I'll be perfectly fine. Like, I'll just catch up on my sleep. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Yeah. So that unfortunately doesn't work. Doesn't work. Yeah. Shocker. And I'm sure that everyone who's tried it has noticed that as well. It's not like a bank account where you can, where you can make up sleep later. It really is something that you need to do consistently. And in fact, one thing I did want to touch on here is, we always think of us having to sleep, 7 to 8 hours a night. But actually human beings are what's called biphasic sleepers. So throughout our evolution, really most people notice this in the afternoon, you'll feel a slump right around maybe, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And that's when perhaps we should be actually taking a nap. They've done studies where they looked at folks who do take these afternoon naps, their ability to learn improves. There was also one interesting study in where they studied the Greek population. They switched from a kind of siesta type of lifestyle to a more traditional lifestyle where we just stay up during the entire day. And when those folks actually switched from having an afternoon nap to not having an afternoon nap, they actually saw about I think it was 37% increase in cardiovascular mortality.
Wow.
just from not taking a nap. And that, that brings up the point. Well, maybe we should be taking afternoon naps. For a lot of different reasons. But to your original point, yeah, we can't really catch up on sleep like you describe. It really needs to be a consistent thing, kind of like nutrition, right? Kind of like exercise. Consistency is king.
Okay, let's dive into naps now for a second, because now I'm curious. What is the recommended? Are you a proponent of, okay, take a 10-minute nap, or like, what if it's a couple hours long nap? What's the sweet spot for a nap?
Yeah, I mean, if you're sleeping a couple hours in the afternoon, you're probably sleep deprived. Probably need to sleep more at night. But usually what I tell folks is about 30 minutes. Anything longer than 30 minutes, you'll get something called sleep inertia, where you'll feel really, really groggy. But it's also one of these things that you have to experiment with. For me, I probably take this a little bit to an extreme, but I have my eye covers, my earplugs when I take my afternoon nap. I slept in my car yesterday as my afternoon nap when I was working out of a co-working space, but that's a little extreme. But for me, doing those little tweaks is helpful. And then also I found that about 15 to 20 minutes is my sweet spot. More than that, I feel groggy. Less than that, I can't really fall into kind of a sleep state. So it does take some experimentation.
Okay, that's super interesting. This is great information to know. So basically, if you're listening to this, take a nap today, is my takeaway from that piece of the puzzle. Let's talk about high level overview. People struggle with sleep. And I think when you're uber stressed, it's a vicious cycle with sleep, right? Sometimes if you're really stressed, it will cause you not to be able to sleep. And then you not being able to sleep causes you to be more stressed. And it's this vicious cycle. What are some tips that you have for people that helps them improve sleep?
Yeah. What I see most commonly happen is people's brain running, at the end of the day. They're thinking about what they have to do the next day, the things that they didn't get done, the things they maybe could have done better that day. And they're kind of in this activated sympathetic state. I think that one of the great ways to explain this is to kind of compare what we do for our children, what we do for our babies when it's bedtime, right? We give them a warm bath. We read them a bedtime story. We cuddle with them, and then they drift peacefully off to sleep. That's nothing like what we do as adults, right? Like, not even close. What do? We're like getting off of our laptop. We maybe like get a little bit of food in because we didn't get a chance to eat dinner. Then we rush and brush our teeth, and then we lay down and then we expect to fall asleep, right? It's a recipe for disaster. So I think training our mind to get into more of a parasympathetic, relaxed state is really the key here. And that doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to do the bedtime routine you do for your children, but you just doing something that is relaxing for you and perhaps not as stimulating. So, for example, it can be reading a book. You really want to avoid blue light. That's why I say kind of a paperback book or or just really a book, not anything on a screen. Even something as simple as going for a walk, not checking email, not even watching television with blue light blocking glasses. Because I know a lot of my patients were like, "Well, I wear my blue light blocking glasses. I can watch TV." But even that can be really stimulating. So anything to kind of down regulate your nervous system is going to be really, really, really important. And I would start that process not 10 minutes before you go to bed, but really like an hour and a half, an hour before. And it's a great opportunity also to connect with other people. Perhaps it's your partner or maybe even your children. It's a great way to kind of wind down and build those relationships too.
I love that. I think that's really great advice. I know for us, my husband likes to watch TV at night, and sometimes he'll pick something that's way too stimulating for me. I get like super scared with every little thing that happens, and then like my heart's racing and all this. It's not a good situation. But I think that's a great tip. Like, hey, just connect for a little bit and set yourself up and be intentional with what you're doing to help yourself wind down.
Yeah,
checking
absolutely.
email like right before you go to bed, which I'm sure a lot of people do because email's on our phone now because you know you get a notification and then all of a sudden someone emails you and someone from work or whatever the case may be, and now you're thinking about that and it's tough to fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a case to be made for productivity too, right? If you're able to get good sleep, you're more productive the next day. You can check more emails. But now you get the added benefit of relaxing and getting that adequate sleep, all the health benefits too.
So we all went to dinner a few years ago and you were wearing a ring. And
Yes.
we were at dinner, like I got my glass of wine or whatever I had, and you weren't drinking. And you said, Nicole, when I drink, I see what happens. You were actually the first person to introduce me to continuous glucose blood sugar monitoring, which I thought you were crazy when you were doing it. And I've done it with multiple companies since then, and it's super interesting. But then you said, Nicole, when I have one beer, like I can tell with my sleep patterns. And I bet most people don't even think about how one alcoholic beverage would impact their quality of sleep. Let's just touch on sleep and alcohol.
Yeah. Oh boy, this is a great topic. One that we probably talk about for a whole hour, but I'll touch on some of the highlights. So alcohol is, a sedative. You got to think about it. One of the things that really changed my frame, how I frame this is thinking about it in that way. Like we give sedatives to put people under for anesthesia, right? Alcohol is an anesthetic in some sense. So what happens is when we consume alcohol, we're not getting into a sleep-like state because a lot of people will use alcohol to kind of relax and fall asleep. We're actually sedating our brains. And what happens is we don't get continuous sleep. It leads to sleep fragmentation where we wake up in the middle of the night multiple times. And we don't even notice because it's only a few seconds. So we're not able to get that normal sleep architecture to recover, to learn, to integrate, to be creative, to come up with new ideas. And then, that of course has effects on the following day, both from a learning perspective, but also from a fitness perspective as well. Where I see this, a lot of my patients also wear. So you described the ring, the heart variability tracking ring. That has been a really powerful tool for me and for my patients as well, because you can actually see what happens to your HRV when you drink alcohol. And even with one beer, you will see your heart rate variability tank, which is a sign that your body is more in a kind of fight or flight or stressed out state. So alcohol, really is a nice treat, but it's something that should be consumed with the knowledge that it's going to disrupt your sleep, even in small quantities.
And I think that's important. A lot of times what we talk about with our clients is like, okay, what do you want most and what do you want now? And you can't let what you want now impact what you want most. And decisions like, okay, is this one beer or two beers going to inhibit me from reaching what I want most, especially if you're doing it consistently? Probably, right?
Right.
We want to be the healthiest versions of ourselves. Like, is that impacting? And most people don't even realize it in my opinion. Okay. So we talked about alcohol and sleep and how that impacts. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about stress, because sleep and stress go hand in hand, in my opinion.
That's right.
When you're more stressed, you don't sleep. Let's talk about stress management and how stress impacts sleep.
Yeah. And they are very tightly linked, right? You described it previously where you said, the more stressed you are, the harder it is to sleep. The harder it is to sleep, the more stressed you are. And it's kind of this cycle. Taking a step back and kind of defining stress, stress is anything that kind of pushes your body out of homeostasis, out of balance. So stress can be, running. Your body has a stressor, or you're putting a stressor in your body. Your heart rate has to increase. You need to start sweating. That's important. Or it can be psychological, a perceived stress, if you will. What we're experiencing most of the time in the world is actually perceived stress. We don't, our lives are pretty great now, in the 21st century. But we're having a lot of this perceived stress, and that can take the form of, stressful meetings. It can take the form of a very large email load. It can take the form of, relationship stress, all these things. But the thing is, your body can't differentiate that kind of stress from the proverbial saber-toothed tiger chasing you down the street or down the trail, if you will. And then what happens is when we get small doses of stress, that is a normal thing. Our bodies are designed to do that. We can certainly operate in a healthy way with small doses of stress. But if that becomes chronic, we start to see a whole bunch of different things happen. We see our cortisol levels increase. We see our blood pressure increase our risk for actually even cancers, a whole bunch of different things start to happen that really will shorten our lifespan. And it's very unfortunate in today's society because we always think, okay, we got to be go, 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 go so that I can accomplish as much as I possibly can. But the argument to be made here is that, doing less potentially or being less stressed out will help you live longer and help you be more productive, and will make life, frankly, I believe, a lot more enjoyable too.
Absolutely. I think there's a season in my life where I was just wanting to fill up my calendar with every single hour something is booked. So it was like back to back to back meetings and Zoom calls and this and that. And then now it's like, I'll have a day where I don't have anything. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like I can get so much stuff done and not feel worried that I'm not going to be able to catch up. But we're in this society where more is perceived to be more, better.
Right.
And in reality, we need to slow down. For people that are listening to this and are like, okay, this all sounds great, Dr. Dani. Like I understand I need to sleep and stress. Like what are some tips to help manage stress? And what about those people that, COVID has done a number on a lot of people mentally.
100%.
Like, I think partly because so much has been out of our control, like we're out of our routines. I think connection really does help people manage stress, right? You talked a little bit about connection and support system and the people around you. Like, I don't know about you, but I feel better when I'm around people instead of looking at Zoom squares. It's great to talk to you today, but I would rather us be doing this in person for sure. Talk to me about those people that are listening to this and are like, man, I am stressed. What are some things that you help your patients with at SteadyMD with managing stress?
Oh boy. If I had an easy fix for this, I would be very, very rich. But I think it's individualized, but some kind of broad strokes. I think really talking with folks or doing a kind of a self-analysis to see what are the things that bring you joy. What are the things that help you decompress? For some people, you describe being around others as kind of recharging. For me, I'm the same way. I love being around people. It brings me a lot of happiness. For other people, that's like their worst nightmare. It's totally draining for them. So, looking at it from that perspective, like what actually fills you up, and then be really protective of that. Schedule that time like a meeting. It's, I can only speak for myself, but one of the things that I find really helpful is I will block it off my calendar. Like, you can't touch this time. This is the time where I'm going to decompress and I'm gonna do what I need to do so that I can be effective the next day or that day. So being really, frankly, militant about protecting that time is going to be really important. And then just seeing what the things are that you enjoy. This can be music. This can be going for walks. Anything that you find that for you personally down regulates your nervous system. It doesn't have to be, a big thing like picking up a meditation practice or anything along those lines. It really is what fills you up and what kind of brings you joy.
I love that. I'd love to talk about exercise. You mentioned it a little bit. Hey, when you exercise, it does cause your body a little bit of stress naturally, right? But it also has been shown to help relieve stress and help improve sleep. Is there a correlation that you've seen with exercise, sleep, and stress?
Yeah. So I think the dose matters, right? I think when we talk about exercise, just like anything else, right?
We're talking about CrossFit athletes here. I don't know that they don't dose.
Yeah. The dose, how much you do matters, to put it that way, right? There's I wish I could show you this graph, but there's this really nice graph. It's has exercise volume on one axis and then stress on another. But the premise is that there's a small amount or a moderate amount is good for your body. It kind of stretches the proverbial rubber band of your body so that you're kind of stretching, you're becoming stronger. But if you go beyond that, kind of like a rubber band, if you stretch it too far, it'll snap. So that's similar with exercise. The moderate dose will help you recover, will improve your immune function, will help you sleep, all that stuff. Too much will actually be too much of a stressor on your body. You'll get increase in cortisol levels. You'll have disrupted sleep as a result. And again, then you're in this vicious cycle that you described previously. So really making sure that your exercise isn't too much is really, really important. I've fallen victim to this as well. In medical school, maybe there were days I get 6 hours of sleep and I'm like, oh, I'm so stressed. You know what I need to do? I need to go lift heavy and do a a Metcon and just beat myself into the ground. Was that the best thing? No, God, no. What I really needed to maybe do was maybe jump on a rower, do some gentle exercise, get sweating, get my body moving. That's kind of the stuff that I'm talking about. Doing the self-analysis, be like, okay, where am I? Am I stressed? Am I not stressed? Am I overly stressed? Maybe I need to just, dial it back a little bit, maybe even just take a walk for that day. And that can be just the dose and just the exercise that your body needs.
I love that. I think it's so important to, essentially you're saying like tune into your body, figure out like, okay, where are you at on the stress spectrum? And if we are super stressed, like let's tame it down a little bit. It's okay. I remember my husband used to work at the fire department. There'd be nights where he did not sleep an hour because there are so many calls. And he would be like, I'm going to the gym. I'm like, you should just go home and go to bed. Like just go to sleep and wake up feeling like a different person. We know that that's not going to counteract a full night's sleep, but it'll help.
And, this is some of those activity trackers like the Whoop or the Aura or the Garmin. Those things can be really helpful because honestly, humans are amazing. We get so good at ignoring stress because we're built to survive in really harsh environments. That's what made us so successful throughout evolution. So we're really bad judges of how stressed we are. And sometimes it's those devices that can give us that clue and be like, whoa, buddy, you got to slow down.
It's super interesting when you think about stress, and we are running out of time here, so maybe this is a podcast for another day. But when you look at blood sugar, stress, and sleep, like your fasting blood sugar is increased too when you're more stressed and you don't get enough sleep. Like there's research that shows that. And if you're eating a bunch of processed carbohydrates and sugar at night, it's going to impact your sleep and fasting blood sugar. Like there's a correlation between all of this that impacts overall health.
Exactly. And, that brings up another really important point in that everything's connected, right? To put some numbers to what you just described, if you get less than 4 hours of sleep a night, you become insulin resistant. That's pre-diabetes. That's one night, less than 4 hours. You sleep less than 5 hours for a week, which I'm sure we've all done during a really busy season during our life. You become insulin resistant also. And if you're not getting enough sleep, it's actually harder to lose weight. And if you do lose weight, you're actually going to lose more muscle when you're losing weight than you would if you were fully rested. So you're really shooting yourself in the foot there from multiple perspectives.
Okay. I think we should wrap up on that because that might drop. Man, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I hope this podcast inspires someone to do a self-evaluation and realize, okay, how stressed am I? And for every person, that's a little different. And tuning in to your body, I think sometimes you can even feel when you're getting to a point when you're uber stressed, right? Like your heart rate goes up, your body temperature, sweating. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can actually feel the signs of being super stressed, and also prioritize sleep. For people that are like, man, this is super interesting, a doctor that like helps people that care about health and fitness and doesn't just want to prescribe a bunch of medicines, where can people find you and get help with SteadyMD?
Yeah. So the website, we've recently partnered with a new company called Lemonaid. That's AID Lemonaid, so spelled a little bit different. Lemonaid.com. If you go to their website, you'll see Lemonaid Primary Care Complete. That's the practice that I work out of. Also, I am on Instagram. If you want to get in touch that way, Dani Urcuyo MD. Feel free to shoot me a direct message. Love to chat. We can set something up that way too.
Awesome. So we'll put those links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts as we wrap up today? Any the biggest tip you have for someone with managing and prioritizing sleep and stress?
Yeah. If you want to get healthy and you want to lose weight and get stronger, you got to get good sleep.
I love it. All right. Again, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good day.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Dr. Dani. It's so nice and refreshing to be around physicians who prioritize health and wellness and healthy habits instead of just giving people medicines. And, I think one of the things that I loved about CrossFit Health years ago before COVID was us all coming together to CrossFit HQ and talking and sharing stories about how we're helping clients, reverse chronic disease and prevent chronic disease. And Dr. Dani always stood out to me on how he really prioritized health and wellness in the practice and the people that he worked with. Then fast forward, we ended up presenting together at a CrossFit competition, and I listened to him talk about stress and sleep and knew at some point we would bring him on to this podcast and have him in our mentoring program. So if you are a gym owner or coach and you're looking for more education material for stress and sleep to help manage for yourself and for your clients, Dani is hosting a training with us actually tomorrow, February 24th at 1 p.m. You can attend live, or if you're listening to this podcast after that date, you can definitely catch the recording if you click the link in the show notes. At Healthy Steps Nutrition, we really focus on that holistic approach, looking at stress management, mindset, lifestyle, sleep. All of these things will impact people's optimal health. And if you're only prioritizing exercise and you're missing all of these other pieces, it's going to be tough for you to see the results and feel your best. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to become our best selves, and we really have to look at a holistic approach. So if you're a primary care physician, or you don't have a coach that really is focusing on that holistic approach, we would love to help you. SteadyMD and Dr. Dani are a great resource for primary care. We will put their contact information in the show notes as well. And if you're looking for a coach, that's what we teach all of the Healthy Steps nutrition coaches. There are coaches worldwide, so I'm sure you can find someone close to you, or you can always apply to work with us here at Healthy Steps Nutrition HQ. If you're looking to find a Healthy Steps nutrition coach near you, go to hireanutritioncoach.com and you can find a coach near you. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, rate and review this podcast. That really helps us be able to reach more people. More people will find it if there's more reviews when they type in nutrition in the podcast search. And that's the goal of this podcast, to really be able to impact more people and help them make health a way of life. So as always, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you back here next week.